So apologies for spending the time on those introductory remarks, but now it's time to turn you over to a panel of experts, and you won't hear much more from me other than questions posed to them. And let me spend a minute introducing them. We have immediately to my right, Gary Jarrow, President of the Climate Action Reserve. As President of the Climate Action Reserve, Gary Jarrow is responsible for ensuring the organization meets the highest standards for quality, transparency, and environmental integrity. Gary has led the growth of a robust and trusted, truly global leading, offset project registry that is the largest voluntary registry in the United States. He is a member of the Commodities Futures Trading Commission's Energy and Environmental Markets Advisory Committee and serves on the steering committee of the California Sustainability Alliance. He's also on the board for the Los Angeles League of Conservation Voters. And I think it's fair to say that if Gary's organization and Gary's leadership had not been there, the most important cost containment mechanism of the program, the offset program, would not exist. And in all likelihood, the AB 32 program would not be succeeding as it is today. We owe a huge debt of gratitude to that organization, so thank you, Gary. To Gary's right is Tiffany Roberts from the Western States Petroleum Association. Prior to joining the Western States Petroleum Association, Tiffany Roberts spent more than a decade advising state and local government policymakers on energy and climate policy. Tiffany served as the Legislative Analyst's Office Senior Energy and Climate Policy and Budget Advisor to the California Legislature, and then as a policy consultant to the California Senate Republican Caucus. An economist by training, she has authored numerous reports on traditional and alternative energy policies, as well as other high-profile issues such as California's cap-and-trade program. So thank you for joining us. Ela Ronan, Program Administrator, LA and Sync, Annenberg Foundation, is two over from Tiffany. Sorry to skip you, Richard. It's the script, and I try to keep to the script, but not my fault. Okay. Ela is the Program Administrator to LA and Sync at the Annenberg Foundation, which I'm sure is well known to you all. It's a groundbreaking partnership that brings together the academic, civic, nonprofit, business, and philanthropic sectors of Greater Los Angeles to pursue and win major federal and state funding opportunities. Ela coordinates the convening of strategic partners across the 5 LA and Sync sectors and helps support competitive applicants in their pursuit of large federal and state grants. To her left, in between Tiffany and Ela, is Richard Stapler, which I didn't intend to slight here. I owe you.
I'm to the left, but I'm in the middle.
Good move. Richard is the Deputy Secretary for Communications for the California Natural Resources Agency. He has a wide range of experience in media relations and public policy. His government experience includes working for 3 speakers of the Assembly. That's pretty impressive. The California Prison Healthcare Receivership, and since 2011, it has been a Deputy Secretary for the California Natural Resources Agency. In addition, he's been Communications Director on a number of statewide ballot initiatives and candidate races, and worked as an account manager on numerous public outreach and education campaigns. And to Ela's right is Andrew Chung, who is the cap-and-trade manager for Southern California Gas Company. Andrew Chung is currently the cap-and-trade program manager for Southern California Gas Company, the nation's largest natural gas distribution company. He manages the customer and governance aspects of the greenhouse gas reduction program. He was previously senior counsel for the utility, wisely moved out of the law department. How did you do that? And negotiated a wide variety of transactions in areas such as renewable technologies, clean transportation, and energy efficiency. Andrew holds a bachelor's degree in economics. It pains me to say this, from Yale University, and a JD from UCLA School of Law. And getting back to the Virginia, they're fighting for the NCAA championship in baseball, having just beaten USC twice. Sorry, but I couldn't resist. And I will say they won the NCAA championships in tennis earlier in May. These are important facts to add. I'm sure you all appreciate my sharing them with you. So what I'd like to do now is move to the panel discussion. We've asked the panelists to start with about a 3-minute introductory perspective statement. And let's just go from Gary to Andrew. After that, I'll stand back up and I'll moderate some questions, and then we'll be sure to leave some time. But just so I make sure I'm on time, we're planning to close this panel at 12:30, is that correct? Okay. So Gary, and let me just ask you one after another to take over when the other finishes. If you go well beyond 3, I'll stand up and yell. But otherwise, please share your perspectives with us.
Sure, and I'll keep it maybe even briefer than 3 minutes, because I know we have a lot of good and interesting questions that you've teed up for us, Bob, and thank you for the very kind introduction and the kind words about the Climate Action Reserve. So let me just, maybe by way of introduction, give a little bit of background about the organization and the perspective that we bring to this table here today. We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization that oddly and somewhat uniquely was created by state legislation back in 2001. So the legislature, in its wisdom, said there shall be a 501c3 organization, and that organization shall set standards for greenhouse gas accounting, ensure that emissions reporting is done according to those standards, and provide a public registry for those services. And we did that in California, for California, on behalf of the state of California per the legislation until AB 32 was adopted in 2006, at which point our original work, our original mission was brought directly into the state of California, and we were free to become an independent nonprofit organization. So since 2008, we've been a fully independent nonprofit organization with its own self-sustaining board rather than one appointed by the government. And we were free to work outside of California. That's exactly what we've done. We launched at that time what we viewed as version 2.0 of the greenhouse gas offsets program. There had been greenhouse gas offset programs under the Chicago Climate Exchange and under the UN Kyoto Protocol, but we saw that there was a better way of doing offsets and said, let's go out there and do that, not only here in California, but nationally, so that companies like Google and Disney and all those that want to reduce their emissions or offset their emissions to make themselves climate friendly or carbon neutral can. As Bob indicated, we are the largest registry now providing those services. We have certified over 60 million metric tons of emission reductions from across the United States and Mexico. We're operating in Mexico now as well. And we heard mention of the odd connection to Quebec. We are working in Canada as well. One of the key things for the California Cap and Trade program is that it has done 2 things, at least from an offsets perspective, that are unique, and that's probably where I'll stop the introductory comments, is that one, it has said that because of the infrastructure that we built at the Climate Action Reserve, the state of California was not going to duplicate that infrastructure, but instead rely on organizations such as ourselves to help operate the cap and trade program. So we are now today providing services on behalf of the state of California for the offsets program. The other thing, and that is odd for a regulatory agency to sort of outsource that kind of work, but it reflects the integrity of the work that we've done and the reputation that we've established. The other thing that's unique is California, in adopting its offsets program, rather than write its own standards or protocols for offsets, has taken ours and borrowed from best practice in the world. And so they've adopted at this point 5 of the standards that we have written. They're getting prepared later this month to adopt a 6th. And they continue to rely on the work of organizations like ours to help inform how offsets should work. And I'll get into, I'm sure people have questions about what offsets are and why they're in the program. I'm happy to talk about all of that as part of the remarks or questions. But really the key thing, as Bob indicated, is that offsets are low-cost, cost-effective emission reductions that occur outside of the regulated or capped sectors. So we get emission reductions from the agricultural community, from the forest sector, from some industrial sources that are not captured under the cap and trade. Those emission reductions are then able to be used by companies that have the compliance obligation to help lower their cost of compliance. So I'll stop there with introductory remarks and move along.
Well, thank you to BizFed, and thanks to all of you for attending here today. When you compare cap and trade to the array of options around climate reduction, command and control type regulations, it is the most cost-effective way to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. But that being said, it's important as we have this conversation here today and we contemplate the use of revenue, it's important to really acknowledge that there is no such thing as a free lunch. This program, we've already talked about the amount of revenue that is going to be raised over the next several years. And we know that it's going to be in the billions of dollars. This year alone, the governor has scored, like it was mentioned before, $2.237 billion in his budget. But the way that the governor scores the budget doesn't necessarily reflect the forecast. And as such, there is likely to be even more than what's in the governor's budget. So that's a lot of money we're talking about. And that money is coming from somewhere, right? That money is being pulled out of the private sector. And so you cannot take that level of money out of the private sector without expecting to have some type of impact. And there will, in fact, be an impact, both directly and indirectly. And we know this. That's actually the design of the program. The program is designed to put a price on carbon. And regulators all agree that in order to send a price signal to all of us as consumers of carbon, in order to do that, that price signal must be felt. And so what does that actually mean to the economy as we all feel that price signal coming our way? Well, it means a couple of different things. It means that small businesses and their energy costs are likely to go up. It means that families will have to pay more of their disposable income for their energy costs, both directly and indirectly. And to the extent that those families are consuming goods and services that are made in California, those costs are going to go up as well. And so that's really important to recognize. It's also important to acknowledge that this price signal isn't going to necessarily be distributed equally. Let's face it, somebody in Beverly Hills is going to be much more likely to absorb higher energy costs without necessarily feeling it than, say, someone in the Imperial Valley, a place where unemployment is still over 22%. And I point this out because it really is meant to underscore the fact that there are potential negative economic impacts, and because there are potential negative economic impacts, it is imperative that we all work to design a program that is going to minimize cost. And having a properly designed program will help minimize cost. Both clarity and cost containment is a fundamental characteristic of a well-designed cap and trade program. And right now, while there are many folks in Sacramento talking about a post-2020 program, there are still design flaws that ARB and regulators need to grapple with in our current program. Those design issues are, number one, ensuring that the state maintains the current trade exposure protection for California businesses through allowance distribution so that we're ensuring a level playing field against out-of-state competitors. The second, and this is a plug for Gary, I think, is that ARB should look at improving access to offsets, especially in the long term, especially around some post-2020 discussions that we're having. And then third, ARB needs to address design issues such as holding limits, the allowance price cap, and the frequency of auctions in order to greatly ensure that we are both reducing the potential for price volatility in the market and increasing greater liquidity. So in summary, making those types of changes to the program would make it better. And it would help in terms of any potential negative economic impacts. And ultimately, that would make it much more tolerable for the California families who are going to be most impacted by these policies. Thank you.
Tease it up beautifully for me. Again, my name is Richard Stapler. I'm with the California Natural Resources Agency. I had sort of ironic to be sitting here today almost 10 years ago, sitting in a dark office on a rainy President's Day, trying to name this piece of legislation that Speaker Fabian Nunez was working on with now State Senator Fran Pavley. Had to do with global warming, this thing that Al Gore had made a movie about. At the time, I was a little bit hazy of what it was exactly about. But 10 years is a long time, and we've come a long way with AB 32 and all of the mechanisms that are implementing it. And so it's very heartening now to be working in an agency where a number of our departments are part of the solution. That is, the funds that we've raised from these auctions, we are now doing targeted investments to ensure that there is a benefit, not just to the environment, but to the consumer and to businesses in California. That is making available funding for low-income retrofits for weatherization of homes, for establishing legislation to ensure that rebates for high-efficiency vehicles are going to people who can potentially least afford them, rather than just being an added bonus for a Tesla buyer. No offense to anyone here who drives a Tesla. Yeah, fantastic automobiles, fantastic automobiles. And speaking of, California's ability to innovate, I think, is one of the great undiscussed things here today. When we look at these limits or these goals that government sets, we as Californians, this diverse, wonderful place that it is, our ability to step up and find solutions to these sorts of things, and using these funds, again, in targeted investments, to be able to spur on that innovation, for that technology to be able to spread not just here in the United States, but around the world. And so, again, going back to ensuring that our next wave of renewable energy isn't just covering desert areas of Southern California with solar panels and windmills, but also doing distributed generation, that is making sure that rooftops and parking lots and other unused space in urban areas have solar capacity on them, so homes and businesses are able to get the benefit of solar energy, thereby evening out our energy costs with other states and other countries. Also, one of the things you've probably heard the governor talk about a little bit lately, and you may be familiar with, is the drought. And so earlier in Bob's comments, he was talking about this notion of co-locating the things that we use, the products that we consume, nearer to where we live. And that's a core component of what we're trying to do here in California, is increase our local sustainability, particularly when it comes to water. Why would I talk about water and AB 32 and carbon? Well, do you have any idea how much energy it takes to pump water over the Tehachapi's into Southern California? It's something like, it's a measurable 20–30% of the energy that we use in California. It's a tremendous amount of energy. So anything we can do to reduce that transport cost of water, that is, reduce the amount of energy that we use, is going to be a huge benefit to our environment. It's going to be a huge benefit to the cost that we pay for electricity. And so I think there are a lot of opportunities. There are a lot of advantages that California has. And it's not to say that for each and every one of you, take a few minutes to visit the Air Resources Board's website. They've set up a portal so you can easily access and look at and review each and every one of these grant programs, and not just a description of the grant program, where the money's going, what those monies are being expended for, There are going to be quarterly reports for each one of those expenditures. Technology allows us so much more transparency and so much more accountability in government that we've never had before. And I, as particularly somebody who comes from the communications world, and as a taxpayer, frankly, I think it's hugely important that each person in this state have the access to clear information that allows them to see that the money that they're spending is being done so in a responsible way, and they can ask questions about it and understand where that money's going. So go visit the Air Resources Board's website, see where the money's going, and also, if you have ideas how we can do it better, tell us, because we are open to making changes and shifting. And I'm always happy to answer questions about the alphabet soup that is Sacramento. Thank you.
I'm Ala Ronan. I'm with the Annenberg Foundation, and I work on an initiative called LA in Sync. And what LA in Sync is a group of 40-plus organizations that includes members of the academic, nonprofit, philanthropic, public sector, and private sector who come together in order to help the County of Los Angeles better compete for federal and state grant opportunities. So you can imagine when we heard that there was going to be an extra $2.2 billion, we got really excited. How we do this is actually through a lot of technical assistance, which you guys brought up as questions in Colleen's presentation about how we can better fund grant writers to write really competitive applications that come out of LA County. How can we better coalesce the partners in order to create co-benefits when thinking about an application? Is an application just a transportation application? What are the health benefits that go into being able to bike places or have cleaner air or reduce sort of the traffic that goes on? So how do you implement co-benefits into applications? How do you let your local legislators know that these applications are going in and why it's important to their districts and why they should care about these applications? And how do you, a lot of the times, raise a match? A lot of these applications come with matching requirements, meaning, for example, the Housing Authority just applied for a $30 million application through HUD, and it had about a $1.5 million match component, meaning they had to raise that in public dollars in order to be competitive for the 30. So a lot about how do you leverage philanthropic funds or funds within the community or funds within municipalities in order to bring in much larger amounts of money. So how do you leverage this great return on investment that will help the communities within Los Angeles County? Some of the things that the philanthropic community has gotten really invested in with the Cap and Trade Greenhouse Reduction Fund are those same things. How do we bring together the philanthropic community and the nonprofits, which have an intimate knowledge of these disadvantaged communities where 25% of these funds are supposed to be allocated to go to affect disadvantaged communities, and 10% of those 25% need to be actually spent within a disadvantaged community. With money comes great responsibility. How do we best appropriate these dollars so that they're actually effective within our communities, so that they might leverage existing projects, leverage existing partnerships? So it's not sort of this Band-Aid effect that goes over here, we have to get funds out, and this is how they go to. Another thing is leveraging sort of innovation within the manufacturing and energy field in order to bring down costs or bring down energy emissions. One example is the Department of Energy is imminently releasing a Smart Manufacturing Institute grant application that will be for $70 million. And LA in Sync, our organization, has been supportive in bringing together those partners, bringing together the business community that will need to share in this application as a partner, but then benefit from the possible innovations that will come out of the Institute, and really being this convener of the different sectors in creating more holistic applications that are competitive in order to make Southern California, LA County, most competitive when competing for these grants.
Thank you to BizFed for inviting me to be on this distinguished panel. I represent SoCal Gas as their Cap and Trade Program Manager, and really just to lay out the framework for all of you as to how SoCalGas is involved, we play two primary roles. First, as a covered entity, we have facilities like our compressor stations that are regulated and emit more than 25,000 metric tons of CO2 equivalent. And we've been complying with the cap and trade program since the beginning of 2013. And then secondly, we are also complying on behalf of our customers who are not covered entities themselves. And that particular obligation started at the beginning of this year, 2015. So we see our role as twofold. We want to definitely try to minimize our own emissions, but we want to help our customers try to minimize theirs as well. And one of the ways that we are trying to do this is by giving them transparency. The gas bill may be one of the few places that the customer, the consumer, will be able to see the cost of GHG, that carbon price signal. Okay? We're currently awaiting a decision from the PUC as to exactly how we will be transferring the cost over to our customers. But we think that it's very important for our customers to be able to see that price signal and to have an opportunity to make decisions about how they're going to conduct their energy lives. And so we think that having a strong way to see that, they will be able to reduce their consumption. And don't get us wrong, we still want you to consume your gas, but we think that by having that signal, you will be able to make the decisions that are important for the businesses, for the residences, to be able to pursue energy efficiency measures that maybe they hadn't considered before. And quite frankly, we've done a lot, both on the gas side as well as on the electricity side, to be able to reduce energy consumption as well as greenhouse gases. But there's a lot more we can do. The other area that I wanted to highlight is technology. Okay, and some of the panelists have mentioned the fact that the goal, one of the main goals of the cap and trade program, is to spur innovation, is to spur those new technologies, because we're not going to be able to get to the more lofty goals post-2020 that the governor has outlined for us without some real game changers and without going to the right of the spectrum, as Bob was talking about. And so we feel that natural gas is going to play an important role in that. There needs to be an all of the above solution. It's not just either or, it's all of the above. And what that includes is, trying to look at biofuels, renewable natural gas, trying to capture some of that methane that is currently escaping in the Central Valley with the dairies and the agriculture, which make up, quite frankly, the bulk of the methane emissions, over 70%. Capturing that, cleaning it up, putting it into our pipelines, and having it be a source of renewable natural gas. These are the things that the gas company is looking at, and with the dollars that are out there now, we hope to try to capture some of that, bring that in to help our customers bridge the gap, because a lot of these technologies are not cost effective today, but it can be very soon with a little bit of push. And so we feel that the goals that the state of California is trying to pursue are in the right direction. We do need to set an example, but again, to try to make sure that our customers get that transparency to be able to take advantage of the energy efficiency measures that are out there, as well as any new technologies that we can develop.